We are excited to break some news here on the Sean Spicer Show. I'll say that, there's nobody that can ever fill Charlie Kirk's shoes, not just because he was a tall guy with a big shoe size, but because he left a legacy that we can carry on but can't replicate. And so this morning, I'm announcing that Turning Point USA has partnered with me. And this fall, I will be launching the One Conversation at a Time campus speaking tour, going to 10 college campuses across this great nation, on top of being a freshman here at Auburn University, bolder and louder than ever before, not because it's easy, but because it's hard, Sean. It's going to be really scary. We understand the risk now. We understand that this is no longer just a red versus blue fight, it's good versus evil, but we have to do this for Charlie. And Charlie wanted us to have the soul of this country saved one conversation at a time. So that's why we're doing this, and we're excited to continue his legacy.
All right, guys, good Thursday to you. As you know, we are on a glide path to the weekend. This is going to be a big and, I dare say, heavy weekend as we pay tribute to Charlie Kirk at this massive, massive funeral ceremony on Sunday. As I mentioned before, we will be carrying it live on the channel. Feel free to come and join the community, get in the chat, if you will. The speakers continue to get announced. It's going to be, I think, unlike anything we've ever seen before. But as I mentioned, President Trump wrapping up that visit in the UK, landing probably in an hour or two back in the States, and then be here tomorrow on Friday, and then whatever. By the way, speaking of tomorrow, Stephen K. Bannon is going to be here. I don't think that Steve is one of these guys that's yielding these calls to take the temperature down. But anyway, I'll let Steve Bannon speak for himself. And then the big news overnight, Jimmy Kimmel canceled on late night. So that means Stephen Colbert is gone. Jimmy Kimmel's gone. Well, maybe he's not. We're going to discuss this with the panel. Is this a temporary thing or a long-term thing? I want to get them to weigh in as well. We'll find out in just a little bit. But Kimmel off the airways, at least for the short term, probably the long term. And I think now if you're Jimmy Fallon, you got to think to yourself, I better be careful. I will say this before I bring in the panel. Just everyone keeps saying late night is dying, whatever. Late night comedy is not dying. Left-wing late-night comedy is dying. Greg Gutfeld on Fox shows that it does work. In fact, it does really well. It's just when you alienate half of America, guess what? You don't get big ratings. Anyway, President Trump, while he was in the UK, also designated Antifa a foreign terrorism organization. That's going to give the government a lot of leeway to go after some of these folks. Anyway, before I bring in the panel real quick, I know you guys have heard me talk about this over and over again. If you're on a wellness journey, sleep is at the absolute core of any wellness journey. I have improved my sleep, my wellness through Beam's Dream Powder every night. I crush this stuff. Crush it. I tell you. I take a scoop of it, put it in some water in the microwave for 30 seconds. Some people are milk people. I don't know. Maybe you like dairy. Dairy's not good for me at late night. So I'm just telling you right now. I love this stuff. Last night, no joke, I was getting into bed about 10 o'clock and I was like, I forgot it. I walked back downstairs. That time I used the brownie flavor, but I'm telling you, it's amazing because it's all natural. L-theanine, reishi, apigenin, melatonin, and magnesium all in one blend. So you don't have to have like 18 pills. It's amazing. It tastes great. I love this stuff. It is literally part of my routine every night. Go to shopbeam.com/Spicer. Use code word Spicer for 40% off. I do love the cocoa cinnamon. I've been trying the brownie all week, but whatever flavor you like, trust me, buy as much as you can because that promo code Spicer works amazingly on your first order. Shopbeam.com/Spicer, code word Spicer. But once you wake up and you're thinking to yourself, I'm a little hungry, you get breakfast through, and then you think I'm a snacker, you know what you should do? Have a Maha approved snack. That's what I'm all about with the Masa Chips, baby. I'm a snacker, in case you can't tell. I love a good snack, but I wanted to do a little healthier. And the thing about snack food back in the day when I was growing up, it was all cooked in tallow. Not anymore. It's all seed oils. The cool thing about Masa Chips is it's just 3 ingredients: salt, corn, and tallow. That's amazing. And so whether you're a snacker or you're a dipper because you like salsa or guac, that's your call, not mine. You're going to love Masa Chips. They're Maha approved. They're going off the shelves. Those ones I just showed you are finally back in stock. I get the variety pack, guys, because I like the blue. I do like the lime. The habanero is my son's favorite. But when you get that variety pack, you get to try them all. So that's what you want to do is go to masachips.com/Sean. Use code Sean for 25% off your first order. Masachips.com/Sean. Use code Sean for 25% off. All right. It is my honor to welcome in our all-star panel today. 2 of the 3 are here right now. The third's on their way. The future First Lady of Florida and the current chair of America First Policy Institute's one of their chapters, Erika Donalds, and Brilyn Hollyhand, my longtime buddy and the host of the Brilyn Hollyhand show, Brilyn Hollyhand. And we're soon to be joined She wanted to make an entrance. Katie Miller. She'll be here in just a moment. Guys, good to see you. Brilyn, let me just start with this. This tribute to Charlie this weekend, I think, is going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. I was on the morning meeting this morning with Dan and Mark Halperin, and one of the young women came on and asked who carries on the Charlie Kirk mantle, to which I answered the following. I don't know that there'll be one person. I think J.D. Vance is going to be part of that. Byron Donalds will be part of that. Erika Donalds will be part of that. Brilyn Hollyhand will be part of that. But I think that the answer, in my opinion, is there might be 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 Charlie Kirks, each going out and doing their part in faith, in organizing, in conservative politics, in elective office. Brilyn, I know Turning Point USA has some breaking news that you're about to share with us. Help me answer this question.
Yeah, we are excited to break some news here on the Sean Spicer Show. I'll say that, there's nobody that can ever fill Charlie Kirk's shoes, not just because he was a tall guy with a big shoe size, but because he left a legacy that we can carry on but can't replicate. And so this morning, I'm announcing that Turning Point USA has partnered with me, and this fall, I will be launching the One Conversation at a Time campus speaking tour, going to 10 college campuses across this great nation, on top of being a freshman here at Auburn University, bolder and louder than ever before, not because it's easy, but because it's hard, Sean. It's going to be really scary. We understand the risk now. We understand that this is no longer just a red versus blue fight. It's good versus evil. But we have to do this for Charlie. And Charlie wanted us to have the soul of this country saved one conversation at a time. So that's why we're doing this. And we're excited to continue his legacy. Congratulations,
Brilyn. Well deserved. I think that speaks volumes for what you've done and what you've built, that they want to partner with you and help. So do you know the dates or the locations?
We'll be announcing this afternoon, but it's campuses all across this country. Friendly, non-friendly, some really cool places that
Charlie is there a friendly campus outside of like Liberty and Hillsdale?
Really.
Okay.
Not really. But some of them are campuses that Charlie was going to speak at. Last week in Utah was the first stop on his campus tour. So we'll be visiting some of those places. And also some of the places I'll be going to now are places that we have seen this outpouring of applause from liberal protesters and liberal professors, employees of these universities after my friend's assassination last week. So we'll be going there and calling those places out.
Erika, help me answer the question. I mean, obviously, Brilyn, now part of this solution, this way forward. But I think a lot of people are wondering, and so how would you have answered that question?
It's a very difficult question to answer because, as you said, he is irreplaceable. I said to Byron, at these campus tours where Charlie could just sit as one person and talk about any topic that any of these people came to the microphone to discuss, you might need a whole panel of conservatives with the breadth of knowledge that he brought to the table. He was just so brilliant and so knowledgeable about so many things. But nonetheless, you look at the AmFest placard, if you will, with all of the faces that go to these Turning Points events, myself, my husband included, that attend. Every one of them is now willing to step up and go on these college tours and do the one-to-one debates that Charlie used to do, not just in his honor, but to even expand, hopefully exponentially, the impact that Turning Point USA has been able to have on these campuses in bringing out these conversations and, frankly, exposing the lies of the left that have never been on display more than today.
Can I ask both of you a question? Do you feel like... Brilyn, you, and then Erika, both for yourself and for Byron, like I've been on these college campuses. I get a little, I'll be honest, I've done a lot of stuff in the last 8 years since I left the White House. College campuses are to me some of the scariest places. Not because, but more because of what's allowed, right? Meaning when I have these conversations, they will say to me sometimes, well, the students have a right to do the following. So Brilyn, it's great that you're doing this. I don't want to freak you out, but are you concerned at all about your safety now in light of what happened?
For sure concerned. You and I have been friends for years. I started in politics at 11 years old in the fourth grade. Charlie was the first guest to ever come on my podcast in the fourth grade. I've seen death threats for close to a decade now. I've never gotten more death threats than I've gotten in the last week. My security team advised against doing this tour, but we can't cower. You see,
Brilyn, how old are you? How old are you?
19. Yes, sir.
19 years old, and you have a security team. That's
Yeah.
little concerning.
Yeah, it is about the state of our country today. And, I'll just say that the coward that assassinated my friend last week attempted to shut our generation up. But we cannot cower. We cannot be silenced. We have to wake up and we have to be louder than ever before. That's why we're doing this tour. Not because it's safe, not because it's really easy to do, but because we have to continue the conversations. That's how we heal the country. One of the last conversations I had with Charlie, he said that when civil discourse dies in the country, civil war begins. He was spot on. And we're getting to that point of if we continue to let civil discourse go by the wayside, our nation will be in a civil war, and we have to prevent that one conversation at a time across college campuses.
Erika, you guys, the Donalds family is in the spotlight. Do you worry about yourself and your husband when you guys are out doing this stuff?
Well, we absolutely take the precautions necessary, and we've certainly amped those up even prior to Charlie's assassination, but certainly afterward. But truly, the message is just what Brilyn said. We will not cower. We will not let any fear or intimidation or threats stop us. In fact, we are doubling down. We are going out even more. We are going to be even more bold with our messaging than ever before because of what they have done to try to silence us and silence conservatives and terrorize us into submission. We will not have it. So yeah, it's unfortunate we have to spend a lot of money on security that should be spent reaching the people, serving the people. But that's what we have to do in order to be safe, to get this message out and to ensure that we save this republic.
Another person that's never backed down and that's dealt with this head on is Katie Miller. Katie, I know you and your husband, Stephen, obviously have some amazingly despicable and inappropriate, rude things said about you and your family. How are you guys dealing with this?
I think the same way we've always dealt with it, which is you don't engage with it, but you keep going. And I've long said for a while that you can scream and yell all you want from cheap seats, but they're just that, cheap seats. What we get to do and what Stephen gets to do each day is make a great difference for our country and for our nation. What President Trump was elected to do, which is make America safe, secure our borders, reduce the cost of living, and all of those things we get to have a real help and get to do for our country, that those who want to protest and those who want to scream can only wish they have that ability. What Stephen gets to do in a single day is greater than any of those people will accomplish in their entire lifetimes. So scream and yell all you want. But the bottom line is my children get to know President Trump as not only their protector, but as their president. They get to go to the White House for lunch and enjoy all the grandeur that is our country and get experiences that those people could only wish they would get, whether that's seeing our great monuments, whether that's thanking our National Guard who are protecting our great city here in Washington, D.C. My children know our country to be a great and wonderful place. They know our president to be a great and kind man. And so those people who want to scream and hope we cower in fear by doxing my family, well, good luck to you.
Katie, you left the employ of the federal government, launched this podcast and had some amazing guests, but you made some big news this week, or Pam Bondi made some big news on your podcast. I want to play for people what Pam Bondi said. And then I want to talk about this because, Katie, you talk about the speech and the vitriol that they're yelling. And I think this is an important moment for our movement. Take a listen to what Pam Bondi said on the Katie Miller podcast.
There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle.
Okay. Katie, I'll start with you since it was your podcast. I get worried when the government starts talking about hate speech. What we might define as hate speech and what the left defines as hate speech, very different. And when the Attorney General says we're going to come after you, I think when you cross, like, here's the thing. I've told people this. You want to burn the flag? I hate it. I abhor it. I will defend it. Okay. I am a First Amendment purist. But when you start committing violence or attacking me, my family, Katie Miller, Brilyn Hollyhand, or Erika Daniels, I will say that's too far. Like, violence is the line. What, in your opinion, what did you think about what the Attorney General said in terms of where we as a movement should come down on defining what hate speech is?
So the Attorney General, I believe, has clarified her comments on my podcast, and I've clarified this elsewhere, not publicly thus far, Sean. But what the Attorney General and I were discussing wasn't just, oh man, I don't like that person, let's put them in jail. No, what we were categorizing is the combination of speech with action that turns into, say, doxing, right? So let's say you're passing flyers out in my neighborhood that says Stephen Miller is a war criminal, he's a Nazi, and he must go, with my home address. By that means, that is not hate speech, in my opinion. That is a crime of doxing, both in the state of Virginia and at the federal level, right? Targeting a federal employee. Those things I would not consider hate speech. I would consider that doxing. But the Attorney General and I were referring to that type of action, right? Where you're inciting violence and your rhetoric is not meant to just condemn an opposing party or condemn a viewpoint. It's by and large referring to an action, for example, where you can't scream bomb on an airplane. That's what we're referring to here, is this incitement of violence now, which is what we saw with Tyler Robinson, where these groups are inciting other people to act and to cause great harm and shoot an innocent man and make our country without someone who I would consider a movement leader who inspired generations, a future generation of American Republican leaders. And the action the Attorney General is referring to, Sean, is not just hate speech. It is the hate speech combined with the actions that create the environment where President Trump gets shot on stage at Butler, Pennsylvania, where you have a shooter outside in Palm Beach, Florida, and you have Charlie Kirk assassinated in cold blood right outside at a university.
Erika, where is that line? You deal with a lot of young people. You've been a leader in the education area. I think a lot of this is, as I said earlier, not just universities, but K through 12, where they're allowing these guys to believe that violence is an acceptable form of retaliation or protest.
We are seeing the manifestation of decades, if not a generation, of indoctrination in our public schools, where they have been told not just that violence might be the answer. That's the result of calling anything that is conservative, Republican, or right-wing fascist, likening it to Nazism. And this left-wing viewpoint that has been put in through our teachers, through our schools, through unions, through education materials in textbooks before parents got a hold of those textbooks and started rooting them out. Those types of messages have been put into these students for years now. Then they go to the universities getting even more of that messaging boldly. Now you have the left-wing media also feeding them those same messages. And you have these polls that show that these students, most students, saying that violence is okay in response to speech they don't like. Whereas you and I agree, Sean, that the answer to speech you don't like is more speech. The debate that, as we were talking about earlier, Charlie Kirk espoused in such a beautiful way. And so we have to root out this indoctrination from our public school system. It starts with what I've been advocating for years, it's school choice and getting them out of the public schools.
Sorry, I can't help but think when Erika says something like that, I said this the other night on Sean Hannity's show, but when we've allowed universities to make it impossible for conservatives to come onto college campuses without armed security, right? I consider that going further than hate speech, right? If you're making it impossible for someone to be able to come onto a college campus and speak peacefully in a manner that is opposite of maybe a large portion of the student population's discourse, to me, then that's infringing on another person's freedom of speech by using other tools that I would consider go beyond hate speech. So when I think the Attorney General is saying, if you do this, right, we are going to come after you, it's this allowance of the prohibition of another type of speech that has gone too far, because it creates the environment where these universities have allowed conservatives to not be able to speak on college campuses. It creates the environment now where what would happen with Charlie Kirk. If the university chooses to not expel that student, to not suspend that student, you end up with what happened last week.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we saw it with Riley Gaines when she was cornered at a university, and it really is a failure of leadership, right? The leadership in these universities need to be sending the message to their student body. We accept these diverse viewpoints. You will not disrupt these speakers, or you will be punished both academically and whatever extent of laws that you break here on this campus. We saw them fail in that regard, both in terms of conservative speakers are coming on campus, the encampments after October 7th. We saw that failure on the university campuses. So you're absolutely right, Katie. And I was glad to see Attorney General Bondi, who is a friend who I've been supportive of course, clarify those statements that this is the type of thing that she's talking about that actually result in actions blocking other people's speech or doxing them or putting them in danger.
Brilyn, you're the guy on a college campus. I agree with Katie. I mean, the idea that when I went to Berkeley or Penn or Harvard, the first person that would greet me was an armed team and explain to me the security protocols of where I would go and be held and what the students would be allowed to do and our exit strategy, et cetera. I mean, that's not an environment. I tell people all the time, the reason that Charlie Kirk was on the quad is not because he loved quads. It's because that's where he was forced to go because they wouldn't let him inside.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't realize that when I woke up last Wednesday, it would be my last free moments in free America. I didn't realize that the end of last week, I would have to have a security detail walk with me to my own classes on my own campus. Like, that is the state of campuses today, and that's the state of the security risk that we're getting in an influx. What we're seeing today is a result of the leftist indoctrination in higher education in the 60s and 70s, where they realized that they could use the hippie movement as a guise to put these activists and teachers' clothing into higher education. And now we're seeing indoctrination all the way down into kindergarten. Like, this right here is exactly what we've called out for years and predicted and could have prevented. And now we're in the situation where we're saying, well, how did Gen Z get so indoctrinated? What we're seeing is actually a hate problem and it's a mental illness. And we don't have to live like this, Sean. Like, it was just 3 weeks ago that the horrible murder of those kindergartners sitting in their classroom in Minneapolis at church, having that brutal murder of them happen. It was 2.5 weeks ago that we had that horrible stabbing of a teenager on a train in North Carolina. And then last week that our dear friend Charlie Kirk was assassinated. We don't have to live in a society where we accept hate. We can push back against it, but we push back against it by talking and having conversation and free expression of ideas.
Okay, I want to pick up on that, Katie. The left and the media, which are the same thing, love to say we all need to, there's both sides have this problem and we need to take the temperature down and have unity. I categorically reject this both sides ism. This is BS. We've just described why, because we haven't allowed conservatives to even exist. So step one, acknowledge that we live. But what if you literally just take your hat off, your Donald Trump supporting hat off, your conservative hat off, and said, if you could give Democrats in the left or a couple pieces of advice to say, guys, this is how we could move forward, what would that look like?
Unfortunately, I can't do that, Sean. As the vice president said, there is no unity with the people who come to my door, who come to my neighborhood at 9:30 a.m. the morning after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, who want to distribute flyers all over our town, all over at my children's park, that give my home address, that call for the murder of my husband. No, there can be no unity. And to Senator Chris Murphy, who says that that is not happening, that the left simply did not do this, that the left is simply not fomenting violence, and that my husband made it up. I can present to him the flyers that were distributed all over my neighborhood no less than 12 hours after Charlie was assassinated. To those people, I say, no unity. The same way they said, no justice, no peace. To the same people all over that legacy media, Sean, who were on CNN and MSNBC, as you just said, calling for unity, saying, let's tone down the rhetoric. I present to them the people in Northern Virginia who said, no peace, who said, I will come after you while you're mourning your friend. There can be no unity. And I promise you, and I promise Charlie, and I said this privately to Erika Kirk, I will stand with her every step of the way. I will be there every single day, and I will be her warrior in this fight. Because Charlie surely would want us to fight every single day. Charlie would win us. Charlie would want us to make every single ounce that we can to make our world a better place, to stop what happened to him, and to make sure we use every single bit of ounce of capital we have to get change accomplished. And that simply, to me, is not unity.
Erika Donalds, you are scheduled I'm scheduling you to be the next First Lady of Florida. You are going to speak to a lot of groups, a lot of school groups, I imagine, because that's who comes through to want to talk to the governor and to the senior folks and the First Lady. When they say to you, Madam First Lady, where do we go from here in Florida or the country? What are you going to tell them?
Katie's absolutely right. We cannot negotiate with the terrorists, the evil, and the far left radicals of the Democrat Party. But we can pull off, and we have in many cases, the reasonable people who are considering themselves Democrats. They may be independents that have frequently voted Democrats. But when they look at where we stand on the issues and they look at the insanity that their party has become, they actually want to come to the right. They want to know more, at least, about what we believe, why our economic policies are best, why our cultural policies are best, why our belief system is what made America the greatest nation the world has ever known. And they are also seeing a nation in decline, both culturally and, prior to President Donald J. Trump, economically. We were going in the wrong direction. And so I think we are winning this argument, and they are making their argument even worse by some of the radicalism that we're seeing, from these individuals and those who are doxing Katie and her family. And so they're doing it to themselves. We actually have to offer something to support. We need to bring these people over to our side. The reasonable people continue to isolate the radicals with great policies, whether those be great economic policies, school choice, education, finding pathways to the American dream for every single citizen, family values, teaching about the true history of our country and teaching them to love America. We just launched America 250 Civics Education yesterday with Linda McMahon. These are the things that we need to do, not just to be against the radicalism, but to be for something and bring them to our side.
Yeah, I love what you guys are doing at America First Policy. That it can't be getting people to understand civics again. Why stop hating America? Love this country. We're not perfect, but we're the best in the entire world. And if you want to make change, we actually are a country that you can get involved and do it. Brilyn, the big news overnight, though, at least for most of the liberal media and the left, is the outrage that Jimmy Kimmel, whose ratings suck, is being canceled. And that's the truth. And that's not like, I'll put the chart up. The bottom line is the ratings for all of the late night shows have tanked. And over the course of the last 10 years, three of them have single-handedly destroyed late night. And for all of these folks at the beginning of the show, I say it and I'll say it again. Late night comedy is not dead. Liberal late night comedy is dead, right? Greg Gutfeld is crushing it because people actually think he's funny. These guys have turned late night shows into political conversations. But I want people to understand how this happened, right? So Kimmel made a comment where he he said that the assassin was part of the MAGA movement and that our outrage was misplaced. The chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, Brendan Carr, went on Benny Johnson's show yesterday. And Benny was asked last night on a Leland Vitter show on News Nation whether or not, and this is the key to understand because the left keeps saying cancel culture is back. This goes back to the hate speech conversation. Cancel culture is not back. We were canceled for existing. They're canceled for saying evil, vile things that incite violence. So Leland asked Benny Johnson, who had Brendan Carr, where this all kind of somewhat came out of, whether this is cancel culture or free market. This is what Benny had to say in reply.
This is what Jimmy Kimmel did. Jimmy Kimmel went on to his audience of millions and said that a MAGA conservative killed Charlie. That's what he said. And then, effectively, by saying that to his audience, he said that Charlie had it coming because Charlie Kirk is the leader of the MAGA conservative movement. He is a generational voice for our movement. And so as Charlie Kirk is the figurehead saying that he was killed by his own movement, what you are doing is victim blaming Charlie Kirk. One, that's what Jimmy Kimmel did. First sin. Second sin is that Jimmy Kimmel is messaging to his left-wing audience that if you are a left-winger and you target a conservative, if you target a Trump supporter and you kill them, I, Jimmy Kimmel, and the ABC News platform will whitewash it for you. I will ensure that your true motives, which is left-wing violence, this is demonstrable evidence has been provided that this is a left-wing political assassin.
We went through that.
Yep. And so Jimmy Kimmel is lying to his audience.
Okay. Brilyn, you get the point here, right? That this is the line that was crossed. And so the left wants to make this about cancel culture being back, and now the right. I don't agree with that. By the way, I love funny jokes. I've had a plenty made at my expense. I had a woman literally win an Emmy on Saturday Night Live for playing me. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's not. But I can take a good joke. There's a difference. Jimmy Kimmel wasn't telling a joke that went awry. He was lying and spreading misinformation as to the nature of this assassination, and he knew better because of the information that was out there. So I put the question to you that Leland put to Benny. Is this cancel culture or the free market?
This right here is not cancel culture. I mean, genuinely, I'm surprised he was able to hold on to a show for this long. He's not a funny guy. Everybody agrees with that on both sides of the aisle. He's an activist in comedian's clothing who just goes up there as a propaganda puppet of the left. And when we say that in the past, they go, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Why are you just categorizing every host on TV that you disagree with as a propaganda puppet? He literally, in this instant, was word for word, like verbatim, quoting Democrat talking points that were just genuinely untrue, that he could have done like a quick Google search and he knew they were untrue. I think for a while they've been trying to get him off air. They haven't figured out a good exit strategy or a good excuse to get him off air. He's like putting their numbers in the tank and he's wasting them millions upon millions of dollars. This was their excuse. This is their exit strategy. So people are saying it's temporary. I think this is long term, and I think his network is happy to see him gone.
Do you? Katie, the rumor that Hollywood media is saying is that the executives just wanted to find a way to maybe make this a short-term thing. Kimmel will come out and say some apology and they'll bring him back. I have a hard time seeing how this guy comes back.
No, I saw a report from the Hollywood Reporter this morning that said he was going to apologize on the show, but then they pulled him. But then another source close to Kimmel said he had no intention to apologize, right? And so I do think that all these late nights across all the networks have had numbers issues and that all of the execs are looking to cancel them. And I think just as many people try to do is score political points with the president of the United States. But I would say this is Jimmy Kimmel did not tell a joke. He was intentionally using his platform to spread misinformation. Should you be pulled off air for that? My belief is probably no. You shouldn't be pulled off air for that. You should deliver the apology straight to camera and be forced to retract, similar to what The View has to do from time to time.
Like daily.
But what I would say is that he was right to be canceled only for the fact that his numbers were terrible. But cancel culture, I would like to say, is pulling up someone's old comments to intentionally try to cancel them, right? You're digging through past comments, past statements. But what you do in real time is not cancel culture. What you do in real time is reflective on who you are as a person today, not who you were as a person 5, 10, 15 years ago, or, telling a story from a third party that we don't know is credible, right? What we saw in the Me Too movement was you don't know if the person who misremembers a story or is intentionally trying to cancel somebody is indeed telling the truth. I think in this case, he was pulled off air for what the network execs believe to be a legitimate reason. But do I believe he should have been pulled off air for this? No, I think it's a great day that we see somebody take a real action for somebody who's not funny. But to your first point of Greg Gutfeld, right, is that late night as a program is dying because it's all liberal and it's only speaking to less than half of the population of the United States. And if you want to reach the United States, maybe you shouldn't be telling political one-sided jokes. Maybe you should be speaking to the entire United States and actually be funny. So I do think it's time for a long-time program rejiggering that goes back to probably the decline in 2016 when everyone started to use President Trump as their foil and conservatives tuned out because we're not going to put our money where people are consistently making fun of us as Hillary Clinton did.
By the way, I love the explanation of cancel culture. You really touched on something important there about how one is real time and the other one is digging back and trying to find a reason to cancel them. Erika, as shocking as this may be to you and probably everyone else, CNN came to the rescue. CNN's canceled and then rebounded Brian Stelter and went on with Jake Tapper to Jake-splain this. This is how they Jake-splained it. Take a look.
About 24 stations were refusing to air Kimmel's show tonight as a result of this controversy. And then, following word that some of those stations were basically revolting against Kimmel, Disney, the parent company of ABC, decided to yank the show entirely. So that's all we know at the moment. We know that Kimmel will not be on the air tonight or for the foreseeable future because the network says the show has been yanked off the air indefinitely.
Brian, just to take one issue, your interpretation of what Kimmel said, I think, is the one that Brendan Carr had and the one that the individuals at Nexstar have. But what he said specifically was, quote, the MAGA gang is desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. That can be read in several ways. That could be heard in several ways. It could also be it could also be argued he's saying that what the MAGA gang is doing is just trying to make sure that they don't have any ownership of it, not necessarily that this killer, this horrible person, was part of them. I mean,
I think you're making a very important point.
Okay. All right. I don't need to have any more Jake-splaining. Erika, here's the thing that's so funny. That's just simply not true. That this happened after we knew the motives, after the charging document came out, after all of the testimony that we know came from his family and friends, after the Discord messages with the roommate where he says, I did it, I couldn't stand for this much hate. All of that is factual. That's out in the public domain. So what Brian Stelter and Jake-splaining are trying to do is to gaslight us, to do exactly what they said that the right always does, which is to spread misinformation, to lie, to gaslight. That is, by the way, the new big lie, Jake Tapper. That's the big lie that you are perpetuating.
Absolutely. And CNN refuses to accept that they are no longer the sole source of news for even the majority of their small audience. People are looking to new media. They are looking to X. They're looking online at bloggers. They are going straight to the source and hearing Jimmy Kimmel's words themselves. And so they can no longer act as if they are the only source and that they can shape this narrative exactly how they want it. And that's going to continue to fly. Even CNN with Scott Jennings on every single night doing yeoman's work, trying to provide at least some conservative commentary there, realizes that they have to bring another voice. And yet they continue to perpetuate this. You know, this is also related to the people who were fired. And I was furious with the headlines that said they were fired for talking about the assassination. No, that is not why they were fired. They were fired because they showed themselves to be heartless, evil people who were celebrating murder that we as consumers or taxpayers don't want taking care of our children, taking care of our health care, serving in our communities. We want them out because we don't like those types of people interacting with us in the public square.
You know, Brilyn, they did bring on other voices on CNN, very important experts. I'm thinking at a moment like this, you need to bring in some serious heavy power. So they brought in Montel Williams because anyone knows how to address what's going on right now. It's Montel Williams.
I thought you were going to say George Conway. So,
well, no.
I guarantee Brilyn did not watch the Montel Williams show.
I was waiting for you to go like George Conway.
No. But Montel Williams really brought some new perspective to this that even Jake Tapper couldn't bring. Take a look at what Montel had to say, Brilyn.
I think I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally. I think this was a emotionally stunted person who literally, when I say it this way, just hear me, tried to defend his significant other, not trying to defend some ideology.
Although I do think there's clearly an ideological difference. That's why I played about what they said about the family. I mean, the ideological difference that he was reacting to wasn't just Charlie Kirk. It was also maybe his dad. I mean, his father was, according to him, MAGA. So that conflict was there, clearly.
But this is a young man who's dating a person in transition.
Oh my, I mean, if you couldn't go more off the rails, this is as nuts as the ABC reporter that said the exchange between the assassin and his transitioning lover was very touching. I honestly can't believe we're having people on air that do that, Brilyn. That's nuts.
They've got to rename CNN to the Cleanup News Network because they're playing cleanup for a murderer that killed all of our friends in cold blood last week. They're continuing to bring pundit after pundit on air, and they fire some, and they have to bring in replacements of those to come on the television and continue to just make excuse after excuse. And what I think is despicable here is he said that this was emotions. Okay, they played their emotional game. They gave safe spaces to my peers, and you're still shooting conservatives. So there's some problem here. Something's happening. Maybe it's not just locking you in a safe space and comforting you with snacks, but but maybe you should have hard conversations. The problem in the country today, Sean, and the reason that we're in the position we're in, where our friend was killed in cold blood last Wednesday, is because our generation was raised to believe that faith and politics are taboo topics. You couldn't talk about politics in public. You couldn't talk about politics at the dinner table. Therefore, we don't know how to express ourselves. When we get frustrated, we can dye our hair blue. We can get a nose ring. We can grab a bullhorn. We can shut down a college campus. We can assassinate a political figure, but we can't talk to said political figure. And Charlie did this the right way. He went to a campus, the one place you're supposed to have free expression. He opened up a line and he said, if you disagree with me, come to the front of the line. And you know better than anybody, Sean, Charlie didn't have to do this. He could have sat in his podcast studio, made millions of dollars, written books, and talked to Gen Z through his iPhone, but he didn't want to talk to us through a screen. He wanted to go in person. And that's the most heartbreaking point. How do you explain to his two young babies, your dad went to a college campus, the one place you're supposed to have free expression, to talk to other people, and they killed him for it? That's heartbreaking.
I will tell you, I can't imagine his wife and kids for the rest of their lives seeing some of that imagery. It really does blow my mind. The one last thing I'll say before we get to winners and losers, I want everyone to think about this because my column tomorrow is on this. There are days when I think about what I've done on this earth. And then I stop and I'm watching these tributes to Charlie Kirk and I go, the guy's 31 years old. And the impact that he had on multiple fronts. And I'm going, all right, Sean, get up, do something today, because that is unbelievable what that man did. And at that age, when I was 31, guys, I'll admit it, I was trying to get as much money as I could to buy X number of draft beers on a Friday or Saturday night. And I actually feel guilty looking at what he's accomplished and saying, get your act together, son. All right, we end every week with winners and losers. I wanted to do it this week because I think last week we pushed it for obvious reasons, but there's a lot of good that's coming these days and some stuff that bad. Katie, you've had a lot of wins this week, a lot of great guests on your podcast. Who do you think had a really good week and who had a bad week?
I'm sitting here wanting to say it, but I do think my winner of the week is Charlie Kirk because as I spoke to Erika this week, to me, what I keep coming back to is Charlie is with his creator and he has reached the place that I think, he would smile and say he's good, he's at peace, right?
Yeah.
And so I think for him, being with his creator is, to me, is a win for Charlie.
Yeah.
And I would go to my loser of the week in the same breath. And, there are so many people who are our world is a lesser place for Charlie not having been here and be here with us because of all that he is able to do. And I'll be honest in that I struggle to find who is the right person to replace Charlie, who's just, as Brilyn said, come to the front of the line and let's debate. Because I've never watched more Charlie Kirk clips than I have this past week and watched him so beautifully and masterfully take on those who disagreed with him in such a respectful manner.
Yeah.
And I would say truly the loser in a way that I know we will overcome is Turning Point. Because, that organization will persist and I believe it will be stronger and bigger and better than ever before. But for right now, they made a huge difference in reshaping the next generation of our leaders. And
they
for at least this week, I don't know who that is. Sorry, Sean, go ahead.
Well, no, I agree. They're going to come back even bigger, especially with a guy like Brilyn being part of it. All right, quickly, Brilyn, who's a winner and a loser for you?
Very simply, the winners are the people that are filling up these church services across the country. Charlie made conservatism cool again, but he also, in his passing, made Christianity cool again. And the losers are the people right here on my own college campus who got fired this morning by Auburn University. The professors that were publicly in class laughing at the videos of my friend's assassination, they're gone, they're fired. They get the boot.
I actually think we're the winners because of that. Erika does so much work in the education realm that I feel like we're up against all these people who indoctrinate kids. When Trump was elected, my kid's nursery school had a crying room. And I'm like, grow up. Erika, who won, who lost?
Our loss was heaven's gain. America lost a future president in Charlie Kirk.
First, I want you to know I'm fine, not because my body is fine, but because my soul is secure in Christ. Death is not the end. It's a promotion. Don't waste 1 second mourning me. I knew the risks of standing up in this cultural moment, and I'd do it all over again. Second, do not let this violence divide us further. The enemy wants chaos, fear, and retaliation. Don't give it to them. Instead, double down on truth. Double down on courage. Double down on your faith and on your families. That is how you honor me. Third, remember this. America is worth it. Free speech is worth it. Fighting for the unborn, for families, for sanity in a culture gone mad, it is all worth it. So dry your tears, pick up your cross, and get back in the fight. Do it with joy, do it with strength, and never ever let evil think it won.
And that is a loss for us, I believe. However, we are seeing already that Jesus Christ has won this week, and his name being proclaimed across our nation and around the world. Thanks to the evangelist, Charlie Kirk, and what he espoused, what he modeled, and what his legacy will continue to carry well into the future.
It's funny. I always try to have a backup because the panel always has great answers and they usually take what I have. But I'm going to tell you my answer, and it's written so I can, but was faith. I think faith won. More people than I've talked to have said, I'm going to church for the first time. I've rediscovered my relationship with God, and faith won. And this is, I know that Charlie was an evangelist. Like the idea that to Katie's point, that this is what he talked about. He was so comfortable talking about his creator that each of us has a purpose. And I don't know what God's purpose was for Charlie. I know Erika said that last Friday, but my God, what an impact that man has in bringing people closer to God, into churches, re-examining the relationship that they had. And that is such a beautiful thing because it's well beyond a political movement. I will say there was a lot of contenders for loser of the week. You guys had some great ones. I actually think the loser of the week is the Biden library because I don't know that it's ever going to happen. And that's pretty pathetic that he is left office in a way that he can't. Literally, this guy's going to have a food truck as a presidential library. And it's sad that they went from such a massive grift to not even be able to fund a presidential library. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. What an amazing discussion. So thank you for everything, for contributing. Brilyn, congratulations to you. Katie, congrats on the podcast. And Erika, I love what you guys are doing at America First Policy to really reinstitute this idea of civics in education. So God bless you for what you're doing. Thank you guys for being here. Tomorrow, Stephen K. Bannon will join us. Remember to go sign up for my newsletter at SeanSpicer.com. Great tribute to Charlie tomorrow. And as I mentioned, we'll be here on Sunday as well. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.